Jason Statham was born on July 26, 1967, in Shirebrook, Derbyshire, England, into a working-class family defined by grit and hustle. His mother, Eileen, was a dancer, and his father, Barry, a street seller who also worked as a painter, coal miner, and lounge singer in the Canary Islands. Raised in Great Yarmouth, young Jason was surrounded by the sounds of bargaining and the energy of local market stalls. But he never intended to follow in his father's footsteps. Instead, he gravitated toward martial arts, training in kung fu, kickboxing, and karate, while also excelling in diving. Introduced to football by his childhood friend Vinnie Jones, who would also become a future co-star, Jason developed a competitive edge and internal discipline that set him apart. He became a member of Britain's national diving squad, representing England at the 1990 Commonwealth Games in the 10 meters, 3 meters, and 1 meter springboard events, and later reflected that diving kept him focused and out of trouble. Yet the path to success was far from straightforward. While training at London's Crystal Palace National Sports Centre, he was spotted by a modeling agency and soon found himself posing for major brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Levi's, Griffin, and French Connection. Though his rugged, masculine look broke the typical male model stereotype, Jason still had to make ends meet, selling fake perfume and jewelry on the streets. His raw edge and real-life experience caught the eye of filmmaker Guy Ritchie, who was casting for a street-smart hustler in what would become the cult classic Stock and to Smoking Barrels, 1998. Ritchie was struck by Statham's authentic background and ability to sell, and cast him on the spot. Paid just £5,000, Statham made his acting debut as Bacon, a fast-talking conman, and audiences took notice. His breakout led to a second collaboration with Ritchie in Snatch, 2000, where he starred alongside Brad Pitt as Turkish, a boxing promoter dragged into the London underworld. The film grossed over $80 million and earned Statham £15,000 more money than he had ever seen at once. Hollywood came calling, and in 2001, he appeared in Ghosts of Mars and The One, beginning a new chapter in America. In 2002, he narrated the martial arts documentary Thai Boxing, A Fighting Chance, which gave audiences a glimpse of his passion for combat sports. That same year, Luc Besson cast him as Frank Martin in The Transporter, a high-octane action film that would define Statham's brand: cold precision, ruthless efficiency, and relentless energy. Two sequels followed, establishing him as a new kind of action star: less flash, more fists. He also took on supporting roles in Mean Machine, 2002, The Italian Job, 2003, and played the lead villain in Cellular, 2004. In 2005, he reunited with Ritchie for Revolver, which flopped critically and commercially, but the setback didn't slow him down. He took a dramatic turn in the indie film London, 2006, and that same year embraced full-throttle chaos in Crank, portraying Chev Chelios, a hitman with an electrified heart in one of the wildest action films of the decade. He promoted the film at the 2006 San Diego Comic-Con, solidifying his growing fan base. In 2008, he starred in the British crime thriller The Bank Job and in Death Race, a remake of the 1975 cult film. Though critics were divided, prominent voices like Armand White praised Statham as having the best track record of any contemporary movie star. Empire magazine noted that while Transporter 3 was dour, it cemented Statham's status as a bona fide action hero, able to deliver high kicks and gruff one-liners with equal precision. Despite his rising fame, Jason never forgot his roots: the street hustle. the dive boards, the relentless climb. Every scar and setback had sharpened him, not dulled him. By the late 2000s, he was not just surviving in Hollywood, he was defining it. The world was just beginning to understand what he was truly capable of. By the dawn of 2009, Jason Statham wasn't just an action actor, he was becoming a cultural force. That year, he returned as Chev Chelios in Crank, High Voltage, a sequel that dialed up the adrenaline to ludicrous levels, blending absurdity and grit in a way only Statham could carry. But behind the chaos, Jason was carefully shaping his path, stepping into projects that challenged him both physically and emotionally. He began developing a new film titled The Grabbers, inspired by the classic treasure-hunting thriller The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, a story about greed, loyalty, and the fragility of trust. His fingerprints were all over the vision. Then, in 2010, came the project that would redefine him in the eyes of global audiences, The Expendables. Surrounded by legends like Sylvester Stallone, Jet Li, Mickey Rourke, and Dolph Lundgren, Statham held his own as Lee Christmas, a knife-wielding ex-SAS operative with charm, steel, and a tightly coiled fury. The film exploded at the box office, opening at #1 across the US, UK, China, and India, raking in $274 million globally. It wasn't just the start of a franchise, it was Jason's official coronation into the pantheon of modern action gods. Audiences loved his chemistry with Stallone, and critics praised his brutal, yet sleek fighting style. Statham wasn't just the muscle, he was the soul of the ensemble. Around this time, he also showed surprising comedic chops, and soon after, he was cast in Paul Feig's 2015 spy comedy Spy, where he parodied his own persona to hilarious effect. His performance as the hyper-serious, yet clueless Rick Ford earned him a Critics' Choice Award nomination for Best Actor in a Comedy and opened a new lane in his career. As the world laughed with him, not just at explosions around him, producers started offering him meatier, more complex roles. Still, Jason stayed loyal to action. In 2011, he starred in The Mechanic, a sleek and stylish remake that was successful enough to spawn a sequel, Mechanic: Resurrection, which in 2016 would become his most commercially successful solo film ever, grossing over $109 million internationally. Though offered a lucrative 3-film reboot of the Transporter series in 2015, he turned it down because they refused to show him the script beforehand. It wasn't about money, it was about integrity, control, vision. And that vision included his desire to step into the shoes of James Bond. During an interview with The Guardian, Jason admitted he'd be interested in playing 007, igniting fan speculation. Critics argued he had the style, the danger, and the edge, and while he was never officially considered, it proved one thing: audiences were ready to see him do more than just punch and kick. They saw him as a modern icon. Meanwhile, the Fast and Furious juggernaut came calling, first appearing in a cameo at the end of Fast and Furious 6 2013. Jason was quickly launched into a central role as Deckard Shaw, the vengeful assassin and rival to Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto. In Furious 7 2015, his fight scenes with The Rock and Vin Diesel were legendary, and critics applauded the tension he brought. His character was ruthless, but charismatic, a perfect fit for a franchise needing fresh blood. In 2016, he returned for The Fate of the Furious, stealing scenes with fast-talking bravado and sly charm. By 2019, Jason co-led Fast and Furious Presents, Hobbs and Shaw alongside Dwayne Johnson. The film was a global phenomenon, earning $758 million worldwide. And again, critics singled out Jason for his tight comedic timing and undeniable on-screen presence. He was no longer just a player in action films, he was a franchise anchor. That same year, in a 30-second Super Bowl commercial for Wix.com, he appeared alongside Gal Gadot, reaching 22 million viewers and proving that his brand now transcended cinema. He was style. He was physicality. He was international cool. Not just a fighter and entertainer. In the background, Jason founded his own production company, Punch Palace Productions, setting the stage for creative control in future projects. In 2018, he starred in The Meg as former naval captain Jonas Taylor, squaring off against a 75-foot prehistoric shark in a summer blockbuster that unexpectedly grossed over $527 million, becoming the most successful U.S.-China co-production in history. That success confirmed his global reach, particularly in Asia, where martial arts action remains deeply respected. And even as critics joked about his unconvincing American accent, audiences didn't care. With every punch, every chase, every gravel tone line, Jason had become shorthand for "you know exactly what you're getting." A man who bleeds intensity, loyalty, and raw cinematic energy. As the 2020s unfolded, Jason Statham entered the next phase of his career, not with hesitation, but with the momentum of a man who'd mastered every angle of the game. After years of building franchises, headlining global blockbusters, and winning over fans from Bangkok to Berlin, he wasn't slowing down, he was taking control. In 2021, he reunited once again with Guy Ritchie, the director who first discovered him, in the revenge thriller Wrath of Man. It was a cold, calculated departure from the quippy, high-octane tone of his past work. This time, Statham was colder, sharper, more restrained. His character, a mysterious security guard with a deadly past, delivered a performance wrapped in grief and quiet rage. The film wasn't just a box office success, it was a reminder that Jason could carry darkness, not just action. The chemistry between Ritchie and Statham had matured, and critics praised the brutal efficiency of the film's narrative, held together by Jason's raw, silent charisma. But even as he leaned into stoic vengeance on screen, behind the scenes, Statham was building a more strategic empire. In 2022, he quietly launched his own production company, Punch Palace Productions, positioning himself not just as a star, but as a power player who could shape stories from script to screen. Then came 2023's Meg 2, The Trench, a deeper dive into blockbuster monster madness, where Jason once again played Jonas Taylor, this time facing not just megalodons, but conspiracy, sabotage, and corporate greed. The film amplified everything: more action, more creatures, more stakes, and while the critics were mixed, the global box office numbers spoke louder. Jason still drew crowds, still delivered spectacle. But his most unexpected turn came in 2024 with The Beekeeper, a gritty, stylized action film that broke his own mold. Here, he portrayed a retired operative turned Avenger whose quiet rural life is shattered when someone he cares about becomes the victim of a phishing scam. What begins as a personal vendetta transforms into a full-scale war against a corrupt tech empire. And the audience saw a side of Jason rarely glimpsed: subtle vulnerability mixed with his trademark fur. The film's slick visuals, brutal hand-to-hand choreography, and cyberpunk undertones brought fresh life to the vigilante genre, and for many fans, it became one of his most memorable performances. As newer action stars rose and faded, Jason remained a constant, a symbol of a bygone era of cinema, that still had teeth. He didn't need CGI superpowers or origin stories. He didn't rely on capes or alien threats. He was raw power, old-school muscle, everyman rage in a tailored suit. By 2024, the numbers were staggering. His films had grossed over $8.4 billion worldwide. He was no longer just one of Britain's most bankable exports. He was a global juggernaut. Yet, even with this status, he remained grounded. He kept his personal life relatively private, raising 2 children with his longtime partner, model and actress Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, whom he met in 2010. Behind the scenes, he lived away from the Hollywood circus, more likely to be found training in a private gym than partying on red carpets. He never chased fame, it chased him. As his influence grew, so did his mythos. Academics even began studying his career as a cultural phenomenon. Manchester University Press commissioned an academic work analyzing his impact on masculinity in modern cinema, with professors arguing that he helped redefine the British action hero not as a suave spy, but as a working-class warrior. And indeed, Statham never pretended to be a polished gentleman. He was proud of his roots, his market stall days, his failures, his bruises. In interviews, he often cited Bruce Lee, Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, and Stallone as his idols, not for their fame, but for their precision and grit. And like them, he carved out a space that was uniquely his. Even pop culture couldn't resist him. Comic artists designed villains in his image. Musicians name-dropped him in lyrics, and fan forums exploded with memes celebrating his invincibility. By the mid-2020s, whispers of new franchises, spiritual sequels, and a return to television began circulating. Rumors of a final Expendables chapter, another Fast and Furious crossover, and a directorial debut under his own company sparked fan anticipation. He wasn't done, not by a long shot, because Jason Statham wasn't just a name on a poster. He was a promise, a cinematic contract. You buy a ticket with his name, you know what you're getting: brutal elegance, unwavering justice, and the rare ability to say everything with a stare. And as the years stretched forward, his story continued to evolve, not toward an ending, but toward legacy. As the 2020s arrived, Jason Statham entered a new phase of his career, one where he no longer needed to prove himself, but instead refined and reinvented what it meant to be a modern action icon. Though the world paused during the COVID-19 pandemic, Statham's legacy kept growing. Fans across generations revisited his earlier films, his iconic roles circulating on streaming platforms, YouTube tributes, and TikTok edits, reminding everyone of the raw magnetism that made him unforgettable. After the chaos of lockdowns, Jason returned to the screen with renewed fire in Wrath of Man 2021, once again directed by Guy Ritchie. But this was a different tone: grim, brooding, and meticulously restrained. In it, he played H, a mysterious cash truck guard with a hidden agenda of vengeance. The film was a box office success and a critical turning point, showing a darker, more mature side of Statham. It wasn't just fists and car chases anymore. This was emotional weight, psychological tension, and a cold fury boiling beneath the surface. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who aged into supporting roles or retired quietly into nostalgia, Statham remained at the front lines, grizzled, lean, and dangerous as ever. The industry took notice not only of his enduring physicality, but of the culture he shaped. Casting directors began searching for the next Statham, a phrase that became shorthand for actors who could blend brutal realism with screen presence, charisma without vanity, and fearlessness without ego. His influence was everywhere in the rise of gritty, bare-knuckle fight choreography, in the minimalist style of modern action scoring. Even in the silent, stoic anti-heroes that filled scripts from Netflix to big-budget blockbusters. Directors who grew up watching The Transporter and Crank now wrote with his silhouette in mind. A man who didn't need monologues to be magnetic. His legacy wasn't just measured in box office returns, but in the evolution of cinematic masculinity, less about dominance and more about resilience. Despite the fame, he remained deeply private, living between Los Angeles and London, investing quietly in small businesses and fitness tech startups, mentoring young stunt performers on set, and even offering uncredited input on stunt coordination for up-and-coming directors. Interviews with co-stars revealed the same theme. Jason was the hardest worker in the room, the first to rehearse, the last to leave, and someone who treated crew members with the same respect he gave A-list actors. His humility was rare, and his loyalty unmatched. Over the years, rumors swirled of him stepping into directing, and though he always downplayed it, insiders knew he was quietly assembling script stories inspired by the working class roots he never abandoned. His personal gym, located in a tucked-away corner of Beverly Hills, became something of a training ground for future stars, and whispers grew of a Statham Academy, more a boot camp than a school, designed to instill discipline, precision, and respect for the craft of physical acting. By 2025, Jason had appeared in over 40 films, with global revenues exceeding $7 billion. But numbers could never capture what he truly gave to cinema: authenticity in an age of green screens, grit in a world obsessed with polish, and an ethos that celebrated work ethic over glamour. He remained unapologetically British, never altering his accent for roles, never chasing trends, never molding himself to Hollywood's plastic mold. Instead, Hollywood bent around him. Fans knew this wasn't just about action movies, it was about witnessing a man walk into the fire again and never flinch. Even his aging added to the legend: his weathered face, his steely stare, the ever-present 5 o'clock shadow, all symbols of endurance. Young viewers discovering his films today feel the same adrenaline rush that audiences did decades ago, proving that raw power never goes out of style. There's talk now of legacy projects, biopics, documentaries, maybe even a memoir, but for Jason, storytelling was always through movement. A punch, a stare, a leap, a silence. He didn't need a ghostwriter. His life was already a film. And whether he finally hangs up his gloves or charges into another fight scene, one truth remains cemented in celluloid: Jason Statham isn't just an actor. He's a force, a one-man genre, the embodiment of what happens when fearlessness meets focus. And in an industry that often forgets its roots, Jason never stopped being that kid from the street markets, the diver who never made the Olympics, the man who got thrown into a film and turned it into a legacy. He stood as living proof that greatness isn't handed to you, it's earned. One bruise, one fall, one furious, relentless rise at a time. If you've made it this far, then this journey means something to you. So, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button like it's your destiny. Like this story if it moved you. Share it with those who need an escape. And leave me a comment, because your voice matters here. This is just the beginning. His performance was lauded for its precision, proving that action and acting were not mutually exclusive. That same year, he wrapped Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, a spy comedy hybrid that once again paired him with Ritchie, cementing their long-time collaboration as one of modern cinema's most fruitful director-actor duos. Off-screen, Jason embraced fatherhood, raising his son Jack Oscar Statham with longtime partner Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. The man, once known for stoic characters and explosive fights, had found peace in family life, occasionally sharing quiet moments away from the camera, but never compromising the mystique that made him so compelling. By 2023, his return to the Fast and Furious franchise in Fast X was inevitable. The series had become a global juggernaut, and Statham's Deckard Shaw was no longer a villain, but a complex anti-hero, a symbol of redemption, loyalty, and unapologetic violence. With every punch he threw, every stare he delivered, he reminded audiences why he had no equal in this genre. His chemistry with Dwayne Johnson remained electric, their rivalry as entertaining off-screen as it was on. But beneath the Hollywood buzz, there was a craftsman, Jason Statham, still doing many of his own stunts, still studying fight choreography, still pushing his body past its limits. He wasn't coasting, he was evolving. That same year, Meg 2, The Trench plunged him back into survival horror, and while critics were divided, audiences flocked to see him take on a prehistoric Leviathan once more. The blend of absurdity and adrenaline only reinforced Jason's unique position, an action star who could move between camp, comedy, and chaos without losing credibility. The boy from Shirebrook had become a titan of cinema, not by emulating others, but by carving out a singular identity forged in street markets, diving boards, boxing gyms, and burning film sets. There was something timeless about him, his commitment to craft, his rejection of celebrity vanity, and his quiet resolve. While other stars relied on CGI or body doubles, Jason remained grounded, gritty, and real. And through all the explosions, car flips, and bone-crunching brawls, he never once seemed like he was acting, because for him, action wasn't a performance. It was instinct. It was memory. It was survival. As the decade unfolds, and the next generation of action hopefuls try to follow his footsteps, one truth becomes clearer than ever. There's only one Jason Statham. As Jason Statham entered his late 50s, the conversation around him shifted, not about whether he could still do action, but how he had redefined it for a generation.